We're back with another one. Now, if you guys know me and you know anything about this channel, you know I love photography, videography, and tech. You know, I call it the Triforce. And when you're able to do something that combines all three of those together, whew, I don't know if you can see it, but I have goosebumps on my arms right now because honestly, this is what I'm passionate about. You know how every family has that person, the go-to tech person that people have in their families? I'm that person in my family. You know, my brother will ask me, hey, how do you do this? My mom will ask me, hey, how do you do this? And honestly, guys, when it comes down to it, like I love tech, I love photography, I love videography so much. Like there's so much. But today, we're going to be reacting to some colorized video that people were able to turn from black and white to color. So colorizing from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And that's another thing that I like. I love to study about history. I love seeing what life was like back then. Now, obviously, I don't have a time machine. If you have a time machine, let me know, because that'd be fun to go back and look. But so without further ado, let me share my screen, because honestly, this is something that I'm very passionate about. All right, 1901 in England. That's cool. That's really cool to see what life was like. That's really cool. That is really cool to see what, you know, you can see that it's policemen just patrolling. That's really cool. Now, this is 1896 right here. That's really cool. That's in France or France. You know, they're playing some games, having a good old time. That's really cool. And now, really quickly, guys, I have to keep in mind, I had to mute a lot of this because they had copyrighted music, because these were YouTube shorts, and so by law, they're able to use like snippets of popular songs. So that's why you can't hear anything, because I had to mute this because I didn't want to get any copyright claims or anything. So let's go back to it. Like this is just, I mean, you can just see they're having a lot of fun. Like and so, I mean, that's what people did back then. Like, you know, they didn't have video games. They didn't have a TV to watch. And then there's this one, 1918. This is from the war in 1980. This is really cool. I mean, the guy's, he's living in the moment. He's trying to be happy. That's so cool. You know, you got it. That's really cool. And see, this is New York City, 1911. This is really cool. All this was black and white, and to see how technology has further advanced this so we could get this colorized is amazing. That's cool. And this one's really cool. This is Paris, France, and you guys can recognize what that is. It's the Notre Dame. You know, the one that's unfortunately having to be fixed right now because it caught on fire. But this is so cool to see like how life was back then. You know, as a videographer, I love to see this kind of stuff. And the person who's, you know, aiming the camera is doing such a good job about keeping it still, because, you know, as a photographer, I am a photographer, but as a videographer, you know, there's a lot that goes into it, and you got to make sure you keep your camera still, because you don't want to like have shakiness and all that. That's not good. But the fact that this guy is able to, you know, keep such a still motion, he probably was using a tripod, which is very cool. But this is so fascinating to me. All right, going on. Oh, that's definitely not what I was looking for. But you guys get my point. Like the mere fact that people were able to do that is so amazing. And honestly, when it comes down to it, that's how technology has advanced so well. Because, you know, I have a YouTube short. I'll put the little iCard or whatever you call it up there somewhere, where it shows some of my ancestors moving around. You know, their eyes were moving around. They were smiling. It shows my grandma, who I had never even met, being able to look around and be happy. It shows my grandpa, who I was the last grandchild that he was able to meet before he passed away. So I was born in the late 1980s. And my grandpa, my mom's dad, he was, back then the healthcare wasn't as good, you know, the technology wasn't as good. And so he was on what's called dialysis. You know, if you don't know what that is, go ahead and Google it. But, you know, it was, at the end, it was doing more harm than good to him. He was taking more of the good stuff than the bad stuff because he had diabetes. And so he called my mom up and he said, I'm not going to be around too much longer, and I want to see my last grandson. And so my mom flew down to Oklahoma, where he was living, and he saw me. And about 8 months later, he passed away because he didn't want to do the dialysis anymore, and I understand that. But so yeah, I will put that iCard somewhere up there. But really, guys, when it comes down to it, technology is amazing. Videography is amazing, and photography is amazing. And to be quite honest with you, there's so much more that I could even talk about. Like here, we'll do this one right here. This is New Jersey in the 1920s. Let me share my screen. One sec. New Jersey, 1920s. Look how cool that is. The mere fact that someone back then in the 1920s thought to record this, and then someone else went back and colorized it, which makes it even more magical in my eyes, is so cool. I love this. You know, you can just see how busy New Jersey was even back then. Everyone who is everyone knows that that area of the United States tends to be pretty busy, but it was even, looks like it was even busier back then. You know, this is 1920s. I love to see the old school cars, the way the people dressed. Man, that's so cool. And, you know, the people who saw this cameraman recording all this, they probably thought, like, what is this guy doing? Like, why is he doing this? Like, we don't want our faces on here. But the mere fact that we, as a society nowadays here in 2024, can look at this and see, like, what life was like is so cool to me, and it's so impressive because without video, without technology, without the advancements of technology, we wouldn't have this. You know, I love these kind of things so much because, as I said earlier in the video, I'm a big history guy. Like, I love to study about history. I do have a hard time with the depressing parts, but this kind of stuff, like, I love seeing just because I like to see, like, what life was like. And so going back, I'll even show you what Utah looked like back then too. My home state. This is really kind of cool. Here we go, remastered. This is Utah back in the 1920s. You can see the Rocky Mountains. This is really cool. This is Salt Lake City. Like, it's so fascinating to me to see this kind of thing, to know, like, this is what life looked like in my home state before I was alive, you know, a long time before I was alive. Man, it's so peaceful. It's so cool. Like, I love seeing this kind of stuff. Ah, the mailman. I mean, look how happy people were. They didn't have all the uses of cell phones and everything we have nowadays, and they just loved life. It's so cool. And that's really how busy Salt Lake is, even to this day. Like, you know, Salt Lake City is very busy. And I love the fact that you can see the LDS temple, you can see the state capitol. I love seeing that. That's really cool to see what the state capitol looked like. We're kind of, that right there, if you've ever been to Utah, let me bring this back to us real quick. If you've ever been to Utah, there's that bird is a seagull. And it's really cool because there's a whole story about that I could go on and tell you in a future story. I mean, in a future video that would pertain to like photography or something. If you guys want that, link, tell me in the comments below. But like, it's so cool to me to see this, because I always, whenever I go to Salt Lake, I always go under this because, you know, it's in the heart of downtown Salt Lake. But let's go back to it. Eagle Gate. Oh, so it was an eagle. Excuse me. I couldn't remember if it was an eagle or a seagull. But then you have, you know, Brigham Young, who helped the Mormon pioneers get out to Utah. That's a statue of him right there, telling the members of the LDS Church that this is the place. It's so cool. I love seeing this. Yeah, see, in honor of Brigham Young and the pioneers. Man. And there's the tabernacle down on Temple Square, which is still there, and they've had to do a lot of renovations. It's really pretty inside. If you've ever been in Utah, go down to downtown Salt Lake and take a tour. That's really pretty right there. That tabernacle is really pretty. But let's fast forward just a bit, because I want you guys to see something. This is really cool because this is literally how people traveled. This was a train. You know, the trains were an integral part of travel, especially here in Utah. And you can just see how busy and compacted that is. Like, there's a lot of people. These are things that I see every day with the Rocky Mountains. It's so cool. You know, from a videographer standpoint, I love the camera angles that this person, whoever this was that captured this, I love how they angled it, because they're not standing like right there. And let me bring this back to us full circle. You know, they're not standing right there in front of the train like, oh, I got to make sure I get this before I get hit. But they wanted to make sure the train was coming by them, but you still had that scenic and majestic scenery. And that's what Utah's known for. But let's go back to it. And this couldn't have been very easy, because back then, video cameras and cameras in general were very heavy to lug around. It was very hard to move those around. So this is just really cool to see what Utah looked like, my home state, back in the 1920s. And then if you were to fast forward, this is southern Utah. This is what it looked like, and I've done videos on that before. But really, guys, photography and videography and tech, when you get those three things combined into that Triforce, it can create some stunning masterpieces. This is why I do this. I want to bring light, that 1% light that I always mention. I do that 1% light. I try to bring that 1% light to the internet so that people can see light through my camera lens and through how I see things, as well as seeing how technology has advanced for like photography, for example, videography, and just the fact that I'm here recording this for you guys. These are all technological, if I can get the words out of my mouth. These are all things that I have done, these are all things that I do and that I get so excited about. But because they had that capability to advance in technology. And honestly, guys, if you guys would like me to do maybe other states or other countries that looked what they looked like in the early 1900s and late 1800s, make sure you tell me in the comments below, because like I said, I'm a history buff I love to talk about history, and when I can get videography, photography, and tech involved, it's like a trifecta to me. So on that note, I will see you in the next video.